It was the autumn of 2020, and my friends and I were looking for a new adventure. We had always been thrill seekers, and we had heard about a cave in the rural mountains of West Virginia that was rumored to be haunted. The cave, called the Devil's Den, was said to have a history of strange occurrences and supernatural activity. Despite the warnings from local residents and park rangers, we were determined to explore it and see for ourselves if the rumors were true. On September 23rd, we set out early in the morning, driving through winding mountain roads until we reached the small town of Redbud, where the cave was located. We parked our car in the dirt lot and hiked the short distance to the cave entrance, which was hidden in the dense forest. As we descended into the darkness of the cave, the air became colder and damper. We were equipped with headlamps and flashlights, but the beams of light seemed to disappear into the darkness, unable to reach the end of the cave. The walls were rough and jagged, and the ground was slippery with moisture. As we made our way deeper into the cave, we could feel a sense of unease growing within us. The silence was oppressive, and the air felt thick and heavy. We couldn't shake the feeling that we were being watched. Suddenly, one of my friends let out a scream. We all turned to see what had caused her to panic, but there was nothing there. Emily claimed to have seen a shadowy figure in the darkness, but we couldn't see anything. Despite our reassurances, Emily was shaking and clearly terrified. Seeing her situation, we decided to turn back and explore another day. But as we tried to retrace our steps, we realized that the way out was not where we thought it was. We were lost in the cave. Panic set in as we frantically searched for a way out, calling out for help and trying to find our way back to the entrance. But no matter how far we walked, we couldn't find our way out. We were trapped. As the hours ticked by, our fear and desperation grew. We had very little food and water, and our flashlights were beginning to flicker and die. We were cold and exhausted, and the thought of spending the night in the cave was terrifying. But things only got worse as the night went on. Strange noises echoed through the cave, and we could feel a presence watching us from the shadows. We huddled together for comfort, but it was clear that we were not alone. One by one, my friends began to experience strange and terrifying events. Emily claimed to see the shadowy figure again, this time standing right in front of her. Another friend, Jake, heard voices calling his name from the darkness, and I began to feel a sense of dread and terror that I couldn't explain. We could feel the malevolent presence all around us, and we knew that we needed to find a way out before it was too late. Finally, after walking for several hours and what felt like an eternity, we stumbled upon a small opening in the cave wall. We immediately squeezed through the tight space and emerged into the daylight, grateful to be out of the cave and safe. But the horrors of the Devil's Den didn't end there. As we made our way back to civilization, we couldn't shake the feeling that we were being followed. We would hear footsteps behind us or see shadowy figures in our peripheral vision. And even now, months later, I still have nightmares about our disturbing experience. We never spoke about our time in the Devil's Den to anyone, not even our families. It was as if we had all agreed to keep it a secret, as if we were all afraid of what might happen if we told the truth. But I couldn't shake the feeling that we had unleashed something evil in that cave, and that it was still out there, waiting for its chance to strike again. Over the years, I've tried to put the experience behind me, but I can't help but wonder if there are other people out there who have experienced the same horrors that we did. The Devil's Den has become a place of legend and fear, and I hope that no one else will ever have to go through what we did. But I know that as long as the cave is there, the temptation will always be there for thrill seekers to explore it. And I can only hope that they will listen to the warnings and stay away, because the Devil's Den is not a place for the faint of heart. It is a place of darkness and terror, and it should be avoided at all costs. It was a hot summer day in July when my friends and I decided to go on a cave exploration adventure. We had heard about a remote cave in the mountains of West Virginia that was supposedly haunted by the ghost of a miner who had died in there during the 1800s. Despite the rumors, we were excited to explore the cave and see what secrets it held. We packed our gear and set out early in the morning, eager to get to the cave as soon as possible. It took us several hours to hike to the cave, but when we finally arrived, we were awestruck by its beauty. It was a large, open cavern with beautiful geological structures rising up from the ground. We had brought along our camping gear and set up camp inside the cave, feeling safe and secure in its cool, damp walls. As the sun went down, we lit a fire and settled in for the night, chatting excitedly about what we might find in the cave the next day. The next morning, we set out to explore the cave, armed with our flashlights and a map of the known passageways. As we delved deeper into the cave, we came across a series of narrow tunnels that seemed to lead nowhere. We decided to turn back and explore another route, but as we turned to leave, we were confronted with a strange, flickering light in the distance. Curiosity got the best of us, and we decided to follow the light, carefully making our way through the tunnels. After several minutes of walking, we finally came to a large chamber filled with stalactites and stalagmites. In the center of the chamber was a small pool of water, and in the water, we saw the source of the flickering light, a glowing, slim, ghostly figure. We froze in fear as the figure began backing up, its translucent body shimmering in the dim light. As it drew closer, we could see that it was the ghost of a miner, his face twisted in agony and his eyes burning with hatred. We tried to run, but it felt like our feet were rooted to the ground, as if the ghost had cast a spell on us. We watched in horror as the ghost approached, its hand outstretched as if it meant to grab us. Suddenly, the ghost let out a bone-chilling scream, sending chills down to our cores. We immediately fled backwards through the tunnels, our hearts racing and our breaths coming in ragged gasps. We ran until we could run no more, collapsing in exhaustion at the entrance of the cave. We never spoke of our disturbing experience in the cave, too afraid of being ridiculed or labeled as crazy. But the memory of that ghostly miner stayed with us, haunting our dreams and causing us to question the true nature of the supernatural. To this day, I still wonder what happened to that miner and what secrets the cave holds. It was a hot summer day in July when I decided to go on a solo cave exploration adventure. I had always been fascinated by the mysteries that lay hidden beneath the earth, and I was determined to discover what secrets lay within the dark, damp walls of the cave system near my home in rural Virginia. I had been planning this trip for weeks, gathering all the necessary gear and supplies, a sturdy flashlight, a first aid kit, a map of the cave system, and enough food and water to last me for a few days. I was determined to explore every nook and cranny of the cave, no matter how treacherous or perilous it might seem. As I descended into the cave, the air grew colder and damper, and the light from my flashlight barely penetrated the darkness. I could feel the weight of the earth pressing down on me, and I had to remind myself to take deep breaths and focus on my surroundings. I had been walking for what felt like hours when I finally reached a fork in the path. To my left, the path seemed to lead deeper into the cave, while to my right, it appeared to wind upwards towards the surface. I hesitated for a moment, wondering which route to take. In the end, I decided to go left, reasoning being that the deeper I went, the more interesting and unique the cave formations would be. I continued on my journey, taking care to mark my path with small piles of rocks so that I could find my way back. As I explored further into the cave, I began to notice strange noises echoing through the walls. At first, I thought it was just my imagination playing tricks on me, but as the noises grew louder and more persistent, I began to feel uneasy. I tried to ignore the sounds and focus on my surroundings, but it was no use. The noises seemed to be coming from all around me, and I could feel a sense of dread creeping up my spine. I tried to pick up the pace, hoping that if I kept moving, the noises would eventually fade away. But no matter how fast I walked, the noises seemed to follow me, growing louder and more frenzied with each step I took. As I descended deeper into the cave, the air grew colder and damper, and I could feel the walls closing in around me. I began to feel suffocated, and my flashlight seemed to be dimming by the minute. I knew I had to turn back, but I was too scared to move. I was frozen in place, terrified by the strange noises that seemed to be coming from all around me. Suddenly, I heard a loud, guttural growl. It was unlike anything I had ever heard before, and it sent chills down my spine. I knew I had to get out of there, but my legs felt like lead, and I couldn't move. As the growling grew louder and more intense, I finally mustered up the courage to turn and run. I stumbled through the darkness, my heart pounding in my chest, as the growling seemed to get closer and closer. I didn't know how long I ran for, but it felt like an eternity. My lungs burned and my legs ached. But I didn't stop until I finally saw the faint glow of daylight ahead. I emerged from the cave panting and shaking, my entire body drenched in sweat. As I stumbled out into the sunlight, I couldn't help but wonder what strange and terrifying creatures lay hidden in the darkness of the cave. But it didn't even end there. As the years passed, I couldn't shake the feeling that something had followed me out of that cave. It was a subtle feeling at first, just a nagging sensation at the back of my mind. But as the days turned into weeks and the weeks turned into months, the feeling grew stronger and more persistent. I began to see things out of the corner of my eye, shadowy figures that seemed to move whenever I turned my head. I heard strange noises in the night, like the sound of scratching or whispering, and I couldn't shake the feeling that I was being watched. I tried to tell myself that it was just my imagination playing tricks on me, but the fear and anxiety continued to grow. I found myself avoiding dark places and staying away from the cave system, even though I knew it was ridiculous. And even now, years later, I can't shake the feeling that something is still out there, lurking in the shadows. And so I live my life in fear, always looking over my shoulder, always wondering if the darkness will come for me again.
Thanks for watching. Subscribe to stay tuned for more true stories.